Really do appreciate everything that you've done. So to kick it off, I'll go ahead and give us a blessing. So if we can all just take a moment here, and I'll thank you, Father, for all that you have done for us. I know while this has been a tough year, there's been many blessings that each of us have experienced, and I know that only you could have provided it. Thank you for taking care of us through this time. Thank you for allowing us to have this time together and enabling us to be here together and to fellowship, show our love for one another, and show our love for you. Now I ask that you take this food and bless it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, have at it. And I forgot.
everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Southern Roots Luncheon session in the SEPC Virtual Garden. This live stream video session is sponsored by Onions 52 and Sobraco International. Joining me this afternoon is Aaron Waters of Schumann Farms. Aaron is a member of the Southern Roots Committee. Aaron, can you tell us a little bit about Southern Roots?
Sure, and welcome everybody. Southern Roots is a dynamic networking opportunity for women in produce, and we suggest if you know someone who hasn't been out before, please invite them next time.
Absolutely. And Aaron, what can we expect in today's Southern Roots session?
We first have a segment honoring Julie Van Acker, one of our members of the committee, and we also are so excited to see Sarah Fry today here.
Thank you all for joining us, and stay tuned for Sarah Fry.
Hello, ladies. Last summer, we had a good friend to pass away. Her name was Julie Van Acker. She was with Organic Girl. She was part of Southern Roots leadership team, the committee. And so today we want to honor her and let you know that we want to share in how we all miss her and her enthusiasm. We've asked one of her co-workers to come up here, and we have a small video to show you about Julie. So she was precious to us. She's precious to just about everybody I've ever met that knew her. So Beth, if you will.
Hi, everyone. Get my mask out of my earring. Thank you, Terry, for giving us a couple minutes to say some words about our friend Julie. I didn't memorize it because it's pretty emotional for all of us, so bear with me. But my name is Beth Brown, and I had the privilege of working with Julie Van Acker at Organic Girl for the past 8 years. Julie, or JVA, as many of us know her by, was hired while I was out on my first maternity leave. And when I came back, I remember having a phone call with her to introduce ourselves. And when I got off, I said, man, that is one tough cookie. What myself and so many of us grew to love about JVA was just that, her toughness. She meant business, and she gave 100% in all that she did. To know JVA was to know her passions, from her love of family, Arnie, travel, and her dog Zeke, to her focus on spirituality, her health, and her love for Organic Girl, and especially women in the produce industry. JVA was the picture of dedication. A moment ago, I referred to Julie as a tough cookie. The toughness was seen by all, and even though she rarely ate cookies, she had a sweet side. She was one of the most positive, caring, and motivational people I have ever met. She was a great workout partner and loved sharing insights on healthy eating, essential oils, and meditation. Julie took a genuine interest in people and would make you feel like you were special. She would always make the effort to check in and see how you were, and she always had your back. Julie fought hard against cancer in the best way she knew how, with all the toughness and positivity she could muster. I believe that she would want all of us to honor her by continuing to be leaders in our industry and to not be afraid to take the path less followed. I know for sure she has that big, beautiful smile on her face right now as she's looking down on all of us. Thank you so much, everybody.
I know you don't let guys in here, so thanks for making an exception. And y'all know how to do it. The drinks, that's a nice touch, Terry. So my name's Corey Christie. I've been in the industry for a long time, and I had the opportunity to hire Julie as an employee basically about 9 years ago. And the most interesting thing about it is I met her on a Wednesday, and Friday night at 8 o'clock, my wife and I are having a glass of wine, and Julie's calling to close the deal. I didn't know if it was a little aggressive or not, but that's just the way she rolls. She's very passionate about what she does, and it was just a very relationship that I truly value. If you know Julie, she loves her customers, she loves Organic Girl, she loves SEPC, and she loves Southern Roots. And you guys have all touched her more than you'll ever know. My wife and I had an opportunity to go spend some time with her about a week before she passed away. And typical fashion, our goal was to go, bless her. We laughed, we cried, we prayed. She showed us the letters you guys have sent, bracelets you made, and we were the ones that were blessed. We walked away. And anyway, she's just a tremendous person, love her to death. And it was funny because about a week or so after, her brother called me and he goes, I'm sitting in Julie's office. It's an Organic Girl shrine. He goes, we always talk about her legacy. Would you guys be willing to do something in her name, like name a salad after her? And I said, well, I don't know if I can do that. I'm not running the marketing team, but here's what we are going to do. And so our company set up 2 different foundations in Julie's name. One is a cancer support fund, a grant that's funded every year to help women with cancer. And then the other one is a scholarship. And this is a scholarship for non-management employees at Organic Girl. So it's the workers, it's the plant workers, the field workers. And they can apply for a scholarship for their child, and it'll be granted. And the cool part about that is Julie's family is actually selecting the winner each year. So we love her. She lives on. She had the biggest smile and the sweetest heart that you do. And I just wanted you guys to know that every one of you touched her, and she was very proud to be part of this group. And so thanks for loving her. So thank you.
So in honor of Julie, in honor of her enthusiasm for life, and her enthusiasm for the business, and her enthusiasm for us as friends, we'd like to present a check of $2,500 to and I'm sorry, I stepped away from the right, but it's Sense of Security, California. But we deserve to keep remembering her. She deserves this, and I appreciate all of you letting us have this opportunity to recognize her.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Now, I've been a very bad MC. Not only do we have all these wonderful, beautiful women here with us, here physically, we also have a bunch of ladies on virtually. So what we would like for you to do, and I think the camera's going to sweep, we want to wave to our friends out there in virtual land and tell them that we miss them, we love them, and hope we can see them again soon. So everybody wave, hey. Okay, so we have an unbelievable speaker. Not is she only an unbelievable speaker, she's an unbelievable entrepreneur, grower, just an all-around fabulous woman. And I'm so glad we got her. I'm really stunned that we got her. So Sarah Frey from Frey Farms, and I think most of you may have known that last year she was United Fresh Woman of the Year, which is an honor, prestige to have all these the other women in the past that have voted for her to have that honor. But she's certified-owned business that was founded by Sarah, Frey Farms, which is in, and I'll say this wrong, Kings, Illinois. Sarah and her 4 older brothers operate farms and facilities in 7 states. Frey Farms distributes fresh fruits and vegetables throughout the country, serving the nation's top 25 retail chains. With a mission to end food waste in the fresh produce industry, the family makes natural food products and beverages from imperfect or ugly fruit. I don't think fruit's ugly. They produce a line of beverages and fresh juices under Sarah's homegrown and Sonoma, watermelon juice brands. She's been described by the New York Times as the pumpkin queen of America. Sarah sells more pumpkins than any other producer in the United States. She's the author of a best-selling book, The Growing Season, and I believe there's going to be some signed copies over here after a while. And The Growing Season, How I Built a New Life and Saved an American Farm, published by Random House in August of 2020. Sarah will serve as co-executive producer of the upcoming ABC series, The Growing Season, based on her story. So program your channels. Don't miss it. If it's anything like what they did for Frida, this is going to be fabulous. So thank you all, and please, do I have somebody else coming up? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Actually, I'm going to introduce Sarah in a Southern Roots matter, and and start off with a cocktail. She so graciously brought her wonderful beverages in, and we have been able to enjoy them today. We're going to jump up on stage, and I'm not going to do much talking here because this woman is so amazing. You're going to want to hear everything that she's got to say. Do we have another mic? Got it. All right.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited. Thank you, Kim, for hosting me. Thank you to the committee that puts this luncheon together every single year. It's such an honor to be here with you, and to all of those who are watching virtually today. We miss you. You're with us. At some point, hopefully, through all of this craziness, we'll all be together again, just like we were. For me, this is really my first live and in-person fresh produce event. So I haven't really stopped traveling through COVID, and, you know, sort of being in this industry, we all sort of just kept on working through the past crazy year of our lives. But this is my first live produce event, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. And walking through the hotel lobby last night, I just saw so many familiar faces, and you know, this is my family, this is my people. So happy to be here.
Well, we are so excited to have you here, and we're going to start off just listening everything up. We're doing it a little bit different this year. We're going to have some conversations between the two of us, all of you online, and we're excited to get down to it and hear Sarah's stories. And we're going to start off with rapid fire. So, Sarah, cook at home or take out?
Take out.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Netflix or Disney?
Netflix.
Phone call or text?
Text.
Music?
Alternative.
Apple or Microsoft?
Both.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Road trips or flights?
Oh, that's hard. I like road trips, but I also like to fly. Flights.
Big party or small gathering?
Both.
Spicy or mild?
Spicy.
Pumpkin or cantaloupe?
Oh. Pumpkins make me happy. And I love cantaloupes. I got to go with the pumpkin.
All right. That's great. So, I want to talk to you a lot about your book. I've listened to the audio, which was, it's very amazing and inspirational. And the Southern Roots ladies actually have a copy of the book that will be signed by Sarah for all of you to take home today, which is really exciting. So what was your inspiration behind writing the book?
I temporarily lost my mind. That was really kind of the inspiration. Actually, I was inspired by a young woman named Olivia, and I write a little bit about Olivia in the book. And she was a young woman who was bartending at a restaurant on Capitol Hill called The Monocle. And I had been in that restaurant that day at one of our fresh produce events, actually, and at the end of the day, I stopped by with some of my peers in the industry, and we had drinks. And Olivia, the bartender, said to me, how did you get started? You have your own business. Like, I don't understand. How did you do it? And, I have this dream of starting my own property management company, but, I'm afraid, and, I don't really have the qualifications to do it. And I spent probably 5 minutes of my life with Olivia, and I told her things in that 5 minutes that I hadn't really shared with anyone else. And that was that my life didn't start out easy, and no one handed me a business to take over or a farm to run, and that it was very scrappy, and I didn't know what I was doing when I started, and that's okay because I figured it out along the way. The important thing for me as a teenager was the fact that I just got started. So really the inspiration happened in that moment. Little did I know, I saw Olivia back at the same restaurant about 2 or 3 years later, and she wasn't there bartending anymore. She was there celebrating her birthday. She was having a party, and I was there visiting with my brothers, and they got out of, we were actually getting ready to leave the restaurant, and she came running out, and she said, "Sarah, oh my gosh, I have to tell you, my life has changed." And she, my brothers, Olivia's really quite beautiful, and my brothers are like, "Oh, why don't you introduce me to your friend? Like, what do you, like, this woman?" And she told me that she, after that conversation, she thought about what I had told her, and she within the following weeks, started her own business. She quit bartending, and she took on a couple of clients, and she didn't know exactly what she was doing or what she was going to do or how she was going to do it, but that she did it. And she told me in that moment that the words that I shared with her had inspired her to do that. And instead of leaving that interaction feeling very fulfilled, like, "Oh yeah, that makes me feel great, go Olivia," I actually kind of felt a little bit guilty because for the biggest portion of my life, it was easier for me to let people think that maybe I had walked into this business, that, I was raised in a middle class or upper class family and took over this family farm, and ultimately, my dad started everything, and it all fell into place for me. And that was, although that was easier to allow people to believe for many, many years, it was far from the truth. And by not telling the truth, and maybe even more of my story to the Olivias, I felt like I was maybe doing other young women a disservice. And I felt compelled at that point to write a little bit of my story, and that's really what a memoir is. The growing season is a memoir. It's not an autobiography. I had to really get my head around, what it was to write a memoir, because I thought, wow, I'm not that old yet, and there are still things that maybe I'm not ready to talk about. But a memoir is really a collection of moments in your life and things that you go through, sort of like photographs that you lay out on a table and you arrange and, and in an order that kind of makes sense. And that's really what I did, and in writing and releasing The Growing Season. But I did it for, the inspiration was for the Olivias of the world.
Well, there's a lot of us out here. Describe a time that you wouldn't take no for an answer.
That's like every day of my life. So to me, no means not today. I hate being told no. Like I really struggle with that. There are many times in my life, I suppose, that I was told no. I think probably one of your favorite parts in the book, Kim, is when the guy at Produce Row in St. Louis, when I was a kid trying to buy the cantaloupes, told me no, that he wouldn't sell me the cantaloupes. And I write about this story, how I was this, dirty face, baseball hat wearing, blue jean work boot girl that literally ran up this flight of stairs after the guy on the docks told me no, he wouldn't sell me cantaloupes because, I had a small truck and I wasn't buying enough. And I didn't know where I was going when I went up this flight of stairs, but I ended up crashing into this room, which was a bullpen full of men all in white collared shirts working the phones, talking to produce retailers. And, I crashed into the room like a comet, and I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do now? I was like 17, 18 years old at the time, and there was a door ahead of me, and I just, in my head, just move. That was the only word that came to my mind, was move, and I started walking toward the door. It could have been a broom closet for all I knew, and I flung the door open, but I ended up in the president of United Produce's office. He was sitting at his desk. His name was Stanley Greenspan, and he looked at me, like his ponytail and ball cap on and blue jeans, and I just started talking. I said, I need cantaloupes, and the guy downstairs won't sell me the cantaloupes on the dock, but I really need them to take care of my customers, and you don't understand. You should sell them to me because I'm not buying that many today, but I'll buy a lot more as my business grows. And I said it literally as fast as that. And he was totally quiet and just like shocked that I had like made my way into his office. But he got up, didn't say a word, and I thought he was throwing me out of his office. And he walked right past me, but then he walked out into the bullpen and he started screaming at all of the men in the bullpen. And he said, if you had half the balls that this girl does, we might actually sell something. Now get her damn cantaloupes. And from that point forward, I never had to buy my cantaloupes on the dock again. I, got to go upstairs to buy my produce when I was buying produce on Produce Row. But the book is full of little kind of stories like that.
Yes, that definitely is one of my favorites, and she was 19 years old when that happened, which is incredible. And I guess that brings me to even some of your childhood, which it was difficult, and you overcame a lot of things. And one of the stories in the book that really had stuck with me was when you were speaking about wanting to go hunting with your older brothers.
Yeah, so I was, by and large, I'm the youngest of 21 kids, which I know sounds super crazy, right? So it's from my parents' various marriage. My father was married, he had 13. My mother was married, she had 2. They ran away to Tennessee together, and then they had 6, which makes me the 21st child. Long story, it's in the book. Anyway, by and large, my 4 older brothers, who are in business with me today, Ted, John, Leonard, and Harley, were the biggest part of my life growing up. And we grew up on this very small, isolated farm in southern Illinois, closer to Kentucky than Chicago. So you can imagine having 4 older brothers living on this farm, like they didn't really necessarily want to like play dollies with me in the house and, like, oh, let's play with makeup and do our hair and whatever. So I always felt like when they would go out and leave and I would be stuck in the house, they would get to go do fun things, like boy things on a farm, like hunting and fishing and, dangerous things that I never really got to do. But the day came that I was old enough, like 5, to go hunting with them. And my father went that day, and as we were walking along through the woods, I thought, if I kill a rabbit today, they will never leave me behind again. Like, I have to show them that I can hunt and that I'm good at it and I can provide just like they provide food. And so anyway, we're walking through the woods, and then my father leans down, he said, "There's one, sis." And he puts his .22 in my hands, and I see the rabbit, and my heart's pounding, the rabbit's in the bush, and my brothers are all kind of whispering, they're like, "You got it, you got the shot, you got the shot." And I shoot the rabbit. I kill the rabbit. I'm like, that's it. I'm the greatest hunter there ever was. You will never leave me behind again. And, I don't know what you guys have been doing all this time, but you should have been taking me along this whole entire time, because I'm the best. So I get the rabbit. I'm really proud. I'm like, yeah, I got the rabbit. And my brothers are cheering. And so from that point forward, in my mind, I think I'm the greatest hunter there ever was, right? I think there's nothing that I can do. I'm ready to ship off and go to Africa at this point. And so it was later in life that I find out that I didn't actually shoot that rabbit. It was dead. They staged it in the bush, and, But my early life was a series of those events where they did things to sort of build my confidence, but then took great pleasure later in life to tell me that, yeah, no, you think you did that. No, that was us. Yeah, you have us to thank for that. So, but my early life was filled with a lot of difficulties and challenges, but just as much as there are some really hard things to read in the book, but honestly, there's nothing that I would have changed about my early life and how I was raised or where I came from, because I believe all of those experiences, no matter how difficult they may have been, ultimately prepared me for what I was going to have to do later in life. And that's why I can, look back today and, writing and sharing a little bit of my story was actually quite difficult. There were many times when I thought, why couldn't you have just written a damn cookbook? Why did it have to be a memoir? But I'm very happy that I did now, and over the course of the last few months since the book's been out, I've also realized the power and when we do share more of our stories, and everyone in this room has a story to share, and when we share more of our stories, we can actually change people's lives.
All right. How important is your support system?
So the question is, how important is my support system? My support system is incredibly important. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think about my support system is my 2 boys, Will and Luke. And I've been able to, I had Will and Luke when I was in my mid-20s, and I was able to build my business, run my company, care for my family, raise 2 young boys, and meet all of the responsibilities of motherhood and having a career and all of those things only because I had such a great support system around me. I had a great family around me, my brothers, my sister-in-law, my mom, people that worked for our company who were like family, and no one really gets through life or gets propelled through life without having being surrounded by people that care for you and champion you and want to see you do well. And I wouldn't have been able to do all of the things that I did at such an early age, especially after I became a mother, had I not had that support system in place to help me with Will and Luke.
So when you were young, 19 years old, starting out in the produce industry, which, I mean, right now we do have a lot more females, thankfully, in this business. How difficult was that for you? And back at that time, did you have women that maybe mentored or helped you throughout your growth?
I didn't really think about the difficulties back then because for me it was really kind of a matter of survival. I actually moved out when I was 15 and I started the fresh produce delivery route when I was 16 years old, and I had a one-track mind. Like whatever was happening around me or you know, with people or personalities or, you know, when it came to age, race, gender, any of that, like I was oblivious to it because I had a one-track mind, and that was just, you know, pick up the melons, deliver the melons, make the profit, go back to the farm, do it again, you know, make money, get out of rural poverty. That was the mentality. And along the way, there are so many people, I get asked who my mentors were, and there were so many mentors along the way. And mentors come into our life, they can come into our life for 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 hours, 5 years, or your whole entire life. And some of the best mentors that I had along the way were in my life for very short periods of time. And some of them were literally, you know, 5 minutes, like Dr. Diesel, who I talk about, helps me like hide watermelons from the state police because I have an overloaded truck and change flat tires. I mean, he was a mentor at the moment, right? Or there was Laura Marshall, who, you know, when I was a 19-year-old girl and I walked into a Walmart distribution center with nothing more than a pickup truck and a trailer and said, hey, I'm delivering fresh produce to your stores directly now. It'd make my life a lot easier if I could just bring it here and drop it off at this DC. Would you consider taking it? And she said, well, sure, I need 3 to 5 semi-loads a week. And at the time, she tells me this, I don't have a semi. I literally have like an F-350 Ford pickup truck with a gooseneck trailer behind it. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, great. And sure, I'll do it. And then I did it. I went out, I figured it out. But Laura, you know, supported me through that. Like I actually don't think she knew that day that I walked out of the DC that I didn't have semis at my disposal to deliver the produce. But at some point, she realized that, you know, I was scrappy and I was building my business, and, you know, she was there to, we probably mentored each other along the way. But I would say that I've been so fortunate in my life to have mentors from all different backgrounds.
So what advice do you have for the future entrepreneurs that we have out in the audience?
I have one very simple piece of advice for entrepreneurs, and that's just to get started. And it just doesn't, you don't have to be an entrepreneur for this to resonate. But so many times we have plans, you know, we're trying to make plans, especially as women. We think we have to have everything perfect before we deserve an opportunity. You don't have to have everything perfect before you deserve an opportunity. You don't have to have in fact, you don't have to really have anything figured out. If there's something that you want, just get started. And I would tell anyone thinking about starting a business or someone who has an idea for something and they're trying to get it all planned out just perfectly to a T on paper so that it makes sense, you know, and then there's so much hand-wringing and time that passes from the time that they have the idea to the time that they actually begin to execute on the idea. And sometimes the idea doesn't get executed on because you get wrapped around the axle and you think, you know, you spend too much time, you overthink it and overanalyze it, and then you don't really even start. So the best piece of advice that I could give to anyone is whatever it is that you want to do, just start. Just start. Doesn't have to be perfect. You'll figure it out.
I guess that reminds me of your book and what's on the cover of it with your school bus. I don't think that was probably a plan that you came up with and thought about a lot. You just got in there and did it.
No, the neighbors kind of thought, I mean, the neighbors thought I was crazy when I was a kid and I started planting pumpkins, because you have to remember Southern Illinois is like a corn and soybean state, right? So not too many fresh fruits and vegetables being grown. So they thought the Fry girl really lost her mind when they saw all of these fields of pumpkins for the first time. They saw, like, oh, what's she gonna do with those? She's never gonna sell them. You know, she's crazy, she's growing all these pumpkins, and I probably look crazy. But when I started cutting up the buses to harvest the pumpkins, then, you know, it went to a whole new level. The crazy went to a whole new level. But I actually thought it was pretty, I mean, that's what you have to do when you're an entrepreneur. You're starting out, you got to be scrappy, right? One of those buses cost back then was like $2,500, and it replaced a, you know, a $75,000, $80,000 tractor and wagon. So I thought it was pretty scrappy and ultimately more efficient, because you could move the produce down the road at, you know, 65 miles an hour versus 10. So worked for me.
What would you consider your biggest adversity?
I don't know that I don't really think of it, anything as being an adversity. I actually think the disadvantage in my life turned out to be the advantage. I think that if we choose to look at certain situations, even COVID, as hard as it was to get through 2020, you can always find good. I think for me, you know, it was very challenging in business, very challenging in our food service business and our beverage business, and scary, and there were a million things to handle. But ultimately, if I look back on that year of my life, I realized that I was also given some pretty great gifts that I would have never received, and that was more time at home with my children, less time on the road, more family dinners together, and then the opportunity to really bring not just my sons, but my nieces as well into the business and teach them. So it felt like, yeah, is it terrible the kids aren't in school because they're e-learning? Yeah, that was really bad, but at the same time, it afforded me the opportunity to bring them to work and say, this is what we're gonna do. We gotta get scrappy, and now you're gonna learn about the business. So I choose to sort of focus on the good that comes out of, you know, bad situations, and I don't know, I can't sit here and think of one thing that I would say, oh, this was terrible adversity that I had to overcome.
And speaking of that, it makes me think of your oldest son, Will, and you told me a story about a lesson that he taught you right when COVID happened with social media and the power of it, and what did you learn from that?
Oh, yeah. So when, in the early days of COVID, when the country really, my last trip pre-COVID, I was actually in New York, and I flew home from New York, and I flew into St. Louis, Missouri, and drove to the farm in Southern Illinois, and that would be my last, like, pre-COVID trip that I was on. And it wasn't long after that, maybe a week or 10 days after that, the kids got sent home from school. I have two boys, Will and Luke. They're 18 months apart. Today, they're 15 and 16 years old. At the time, they were 14 and 15. And so they get sent home from school. We don't know when they're going back. We don't really know what's happening. I'm taking, like, the hill where I grew up and where I was sort of managing the chaos from was my kitchen on the hill, on the farm. And they were home, and they were having, because they were home from school, they started to listen to these conversations that their mom was having to have. Whether it was conversations about, you know, the border shutting down and not being able to cross our guest workers, or the fact that our neighbors were disking up millions and millions of dollars worth of tomatoes, and we were getting ready to start harvesting a watermelon crop. And we didn't know, are we gonna have a market for that? People were stocking their pantries with shelf-stable items, and, you know, they weren't necessarily buying fresh in those first few weeks because no one knew, you know, how long this was going to last. And actually grocery store trips were becoming more infrequent. People were buying more at the grocery store, but they were going less frequently, which meant early on they weren't buying as much fresh produce. And so through all of that uncertainty, my children had the opportunity to watch what their mother was sort of going through firsthand, and they had to overhear a lot of really difficult conversations and things that, I mean, kids, you don't think about it, but it's things you don't really want to talk about in front of your kids. But, it was sort of one of those times. I'm sure every working mother here, had your kids while you were trying to do a Zoom or a conference call or whatever. The kids probably actually learned a lot about what you do for a living and, how the world works. And my kids certainly did, but I remember I had just hung up after having a conversation about getting our workers to cross the border because there were talks about shutting down the border. And William, my oldest, he shut his laptop and he looked at me and he said, "Mom, what can I do to help? I can't do this. I don't, this whole e-learning thing. I just want to help you in the business." And you know how, so if you're a mom, your kids usually said, for me anyway, it's like, "Mom." And if you don't answer the first time, they just keep going, "Mom, mom, mom, mom." Will's the son that does that. And usually he has to say mom like 3 times before I'm like, "Oh, what, Will?" And I said, "You know what, Will, you know what you can do?" And I was kind of flip, and I felt really bad after it came out of my mouth. I said, "You know what you can do? You can sell some watermelons. That's what you can do to help." And as soon as I said it, I thought, "Oh, why did you have to, you're snapping at your kids now, it doesn't matter that you have all this, why are you snapping at them?" But he says, "Okay." So now in my head, I feel bad because I snapped at my son, and I said very sarcastically, "You know what you could do to help? You could sell some watermelons." I didn't really mean I wanted him to sell some watermelons. But now he wanted to sell them, and now I had to figure out how I was going to get them a load of watermelons to sell because I felt bad, and I didn't want to crush his little entrepreneurial dreams. So I'm like, "Oh, okay. Okay, son, so we're going to get you a load of watermelons." So when we started harvesting our watermelons during COVID in South Florida, we sent a load up, and William and Luke and their little cousins were going to sell the watermelons on Easter weekend. And I felt really bad because I thought their hopes and their dreams of contributing to the family farm were going to get crushed. Because where we live in southern Illinois is 30 minutes from the nearest small town. Okay, so out in the middle of nowhere, Nowhereville. Can't see another house from our house, can't see another house from the warehouse or the home office. And so they set up on a Saturday morning, but they had put that they were going to have this Easter drive-through at the farm on social media. And they set up at the warehouse a cute little watermelon stand. I go over there at 7 o'clock in the morning. They got lab coats on, their little masks, their glasses. And they're putting the watermelons out there. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Oh, they're not going to sell any. I got to go home and call the neighbors." So I go home and I make a few phone calls. I'm like, "Oh, Will and Luke and Anna and Audrey are setting up a watermelon stand. Can you come over and buy 20 watermelons from them, Then I kind of forget about it. I go about my morning, I make coffee, and the phone rings, and it's my brother John. He says, "Get over here now. There are cars lined up past the county line. I'm dying. We're throwing watermelons." The guy said, "What are you talking about? I was just there." And click. So then I'm like, okay, what's he talking about? I was just over there. The kids were setting up a watermelon stand. What is it? So I start driving down the road. I get about halfway to my office, and I have to start passing cars on this country road that are lined up waiting for over 2 miles to get to the kids' watermelon stand. And it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my whole entire life. And I thought, oh my God, we don't sell anything to the public, right? We sell to, grocery retail chains. We sell to, food service, restaurant chains. We don't ever interface with the public. And now we're interfacing with the public. And I'm passing them as they're sitting in line for hours to wait for their watermelons because the kids have to get every car safely through the drive-thru. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a public relations nightmare. Look at all these people. They're going to start complaining because they're waiting. And so I get to the warehouse, and John, my brother John, and the kids are throwing watermelons, $5 a piece in the back of every car. The people were so nice, and they were so happy. They had been trapped at home. They had nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. It was a pretty day. They drove out into the country, and They go, oh, buy watermelons. But they weren't just buying one watermelon, they were buying like 10 watermelons because it was Easter weekend and they were using them for Easter eggs. And they were taking these watermelons to their neighbors, their friends, to the nursing homes, and they were leaving watermelons everywhere. And I thought, this is really incredible. So I'm in there, I jump in there, and cars are coming through their drive-through, and we're loading up watermelons, and before I know it, I look around, and we're down to like 2 bins of watermelons, which is like 100 watermelons. I'm like, oh my gosh. I looked at the line, it's still down the county line. Oh no, we got to get another semi-load of watermelons. So Will says, don't worry, Mom, I'll just go on Facebook. I'll let everybody know that we're going to bring another semi-load over from the warehouse in Indiana. So he gets on Facebook and communicates with everybody still waiting in the line that he's getting the second load. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is really incredible. And by the end of the day, the children have sold 2 semi-loads of watermelons. Now, I thought they might sell anywhere between 50 and 200 watermelons. They sold during the day, and that would be because I would have called the neighbors and everybody to come buy them. They sold over 5,000 watermelons in the middle of nowhere in 5 hours in individual cars. And that was all through the power of social media and telling our family's farm story and getting people to drive it. People drove from St. Louis, Chicago, Springfield, Evansville, Indiana. It was the craziest thing that I ever saw. And the kids are like, well, yeah, of course. Like, we put it on social media. Okay. Thought I was cool at your age. Nope.
What was your inspiration behind the beverage line?
You know, the inspiration behind beverage really stems from just really our love of farming and growing things. And when you're a farmer, you have to figure out how you can do more with less and how you can make use of everything that you grow. So for us, we started making the Sama watermelon juice because we were growing a lot of watermelons, and we wanted to find a purpose for every melon that we were growing. And so many of you in this industry, I'm sure you know that sometimes fruit isn't visually perfect. It's part of it, but it tastes great and it's still delicious. And if you find it's higher purpose and it's better purpose, you can make something really, really nutritious and delicious out of it. So that was really the inspiration, was to find a purpose for everything that we grow and ultimately do the right thing for the farm, do the right thing for the planet, and do the right thing for the consumer.
So what can you tell us about the upcoming series? Is there any secrets that you can let us know about?
Well, it's not really, it's the fact that it's getting made into a series isn't a secret, so that part's good. So what happened was when Random House published the book, it had actually already been optioned for film. And there were a series of different producers that had different ideas on how they wanted to see the story play out on different platforms, whether it was HBO or Netflix or network television. And a guy by the name of Danny Strong, who's an incredible producer, he actually created the series Empire, was one of the individuals who bid on the growing season. And I met Danny in New York, and I really liked him, and I felt like he would be a good partner for me and someone who would take good care of my story, and he saw it playing out in a television series that would last for several seasons. And I felt like that was the better platform for the story to be told on. And so that's what we did. And then when ABC was able to read the proposal, they took it off the table for everybody else and said, no, we want to do this. And then we were really fortunate to hire a really great screenwriter by the name of Colette Burnson. And Colette was a cable writer for many years. She's extraordinarily talented. She grew up in West Virginia, and I think she kind of gets me, and I think that she's going to do a really great job too in representing our industry. So it's not, this isn't like it's not a documentary on the fresh produce industry. I mean, people are going to be tuning in to watch the television series probably more because they're going to wonder what happens to my love life on any given week. Who knows? I don't know. It's getting a little out of control. I read the first couple of episodes, and it's kind of crazy, but because it's dramatized, obviously, for television. But what's really nice about it is that in the background, you're going to, the viewer is going to have a look into the life of what it's like to produce fruits and vegetables, and some of the things that we go through, to get crops to the market, and how, kind of deals get done. So I'm really excited for our industry in that respect, and I hope the growing season is successful. It gets out of pilot and gets, slated for a great time and lives on for many, many, many seasons. And I don't know who's going to play me yet. So we haven't started casting. Hopefully we'll cast soon.
I really have enjoyed getting to know you over the past several months, and love hearing your stories, and glad that you're here to share it with everyone. And right now, I'm so lost in the moment in time, I'm not sure if it's time to start our Q&A or...
Does anybody got the time? What time is it?
I'm sorry, I didn't bring my phone up here.
1:45. Is that when were we supposed to start Q&A? 1:45?
Yeah.
All right, well, there you go. All right.
That's good. All right, so we are going to start opening up to the floor, and then we're also going to have online questions for Sarah to answer.
Great.
And give everyone a chance to ask her the same kind of questions I have. She's probably looking for the microphone. Here we go. You got one?
Hi, Sarah. It's Maida. Hi. I wanted to first thank you because I think I've purchased, 30 books. And what I did is that I gave them away to every young person that I thought it could benefit. And everybody has come back to me saying how wonderful. I took a picture of you and I sent it to a group of friends, and I'm so jealous. I would love to be there. So I just wanted to tell you thank you. It could not have been easy to write something so personal, and just wanted to say thank you for sharing it with us and the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for, buying the book and sharing the book with so many people in your life. That means so much to me.
Anybody else?
Thanks for being here. You're a wonderful inspiration to all of us. Being in the industry for 40 years, it's wonderful to meet a self-starter. I worked for Frida's for over 12 years, and I think the person that comes closest to you that I've heard speak would be Frida, and you're a wonderful speaker. And I hope you continue to inspire women across the country, and especially in this industry, so that we get more talented women like you in it.
That's probably the nicest compliment I've ever been given in my whole entire life, I'm just saying. So I was fortunate enough to be the recipient of Frida's scholarship many, many years ago when I was very young, to go to Washington, D.C. to lobby on behalf of our industry. And that was, I probably wouldn't have taken that trip, and I probably wouldn't have engaged in a more formal way within our industry had she not had that program set up. And I'm very thankful to her, and I just remember how contagious her smile was. And I remember I shipped her a big thing of popcorn as a thank you after I attended that trip to DC. And then I saw her later at the show, and she said, "They tried to take away my popcorn, but I ate it. I ate it all." And it was one of those big cans. And I thought, oh, she's my spirit animal. She's amazing. So thank you so much.
Anybody else? Sorry, I have on heels. I'm not going to run.
Sarah, your story is absolutely amazing, and as a lot of us are working mothers, how do you structure your day to get it all done?
How do I structure
Like
my day?
structure your day, or how do you manage your, like, what are some helpful things for you to manage your time?
Well, my life's very different now because my oldest drives. So they are pretty self-sufficient. And the day that that sort of changed, there was this moment when your kid drives, like, oh my gosh, I have a whole new set of concerns. But then there's also this like, oh, he's driving. I don't have to go there. I don't have to arrange to have a pickup here or there. So in that sense, life's gotten a lot easier. But when the kids were little, it wasn't just a ton of structure. I hate to admit it. It was kind of all in one bucket. You know, I had the business in one bucket. I had the family in one bucket, the kids in one bucket. Like, it was all sort of combined. And the house that I live in and where I grew up on the farm, and you know, I have a big family, and we never lock our doors, and people are over all the time, and it's a family business, so at family dinners, you're still talking about the business, and, you know, we're going to sporting events for the kids, and we're sitting there and we're talking about the business, or we're talking about the family, or we're talking about the kids. It's all kind of in one bucket, so it's not like I was ever really able to, you know, there are pros and cons to that, but it's not like I was ever really able to sort any of that out. But what that did do by instead of trying to like shush the kids while I was on a call, or, you know, like even when I traveled, I would take them with me, you know, many times, because that was time. Like, I wanted time with my kids. So yeah, it's a work trip, but I'm going to take my kids, and the customer's going to need to understand that, because I'm a mom. That's my first job. I commingled a lot of that. But it also afforded me the opportunity to sort of build the life that I wanted to live with my kids. But it also presented some challenges too. And today, I mean, life is, even before COVID, was becoming a little more structured. You know, the kids were older, and they had set school schedules and things. And I think that for the most part, when they were very young, I started teaching them how to do things to help them take care of themselves. So, for instance, I wanted my boys to be able to travel with me. So I showed them the first time how to pack their suitcase when they were really little. And then from that point forward, I never packed their suitcase for them again. I'm like, you want to go on the trip? You pack your bag. You leave stuff at home, you left it at home. It is what it is. And so it was like those little things like that, and taking the time investing in my kids when they were really small, and whether it was like, okay, this is how you make scrambled eggs in the morning. And oh, by the way, this is how you turn on the coffee maker. I mean, I hate to say this, I sort of feel like a bad mom sitting up here, but I don't make my coffee when I'm at home. I have children for that. I'm like, why do you think I had you? Make the coffee. But all of that really kind of started at a very early age. I started teaching them how to do those things so that they could help me, you know, help them. And that's probably, I mean, probably the best piece of advice that I have for working moms is, why do you feel like you have to do? You don't have to do it all. Like, train your kids. That's what they're for. You had them. They were actually supposed to help you.
Who's next?
Hi, Sarah. I'm curious how you define success for yourself, or are you continually redefining it as your career advances, as all the different entities that you're involved in now advance? How do you define success?
That's very loosely defined within my own mind, and it depends on the day.
Nice.
And it really does depend on the day. I mean, success for me is sort of just this overall feeling when I look at the young people in my life, my nieces and nephews and my kids, and when I see them doing well and achieving great things. And Hillary, my niece, is here today. When I see Hillary doing big things, or Will and Luke, or Anna and Audrey, or any one of my nieces or nephews doing awesome things with their lives, that's how I define it. The family and how well the family's doing, how well the kids in the family are doing, and what they're up to, and what impact they're having on the world, and what they're interested in, and what their goals and dreams are, and are they achieving those goals and dreams. And when they do, I probably get more satisfaction out of that than they do, because to me, that's success, because I feel like the time that I invested in them, and whether it was through creating the business and bringing them into it, or the moments along the way where I took the time to invest in them and teaching them, when I see them do big things, then I feel very rewarded.
Who's next?
You're good. Maybe I should get up and help her field the question.
I'm going to stand up and we're going to talk, and Kim's going to walk around so you don't have to keep hiking.
Okay.
And you stand up anyway.
Sorry. When you first got started, what did you envision you'd be able to accomplish? What were you hoping would come out of Slinging Melons? And how does that compare to what you
Oh my
achieved?
gosh. So you have to remember, when I got started, I was like barely 16. And there was really no great vision. Like, the vision at the time was, I hope someday I don't look like a carnival act. I mean, because I felt like I look like a rolling carnival show with this big old truck and this big load of melons in the back rolling through town. And really, from that point forward, and that was probably a really good thing, actually, that it was an old truck loaded down with watermelons, and I did look ridiculous, because it sort of taught me not to give a damn what people thought, because my focus was on, get the melons off the truck, sell the melons, make a profit, do it again. So as the business started to grow, then the focus and the priority became bringing my family back together, because I had this big family and I had been raised in this home, with a lot of love from my brothers and a lot of camaraderie, and I wanted that feeling back, because I was the youngest. I was the last kid left at home. So when they all went off to college, I was sort of like stuck doing my own thing. I was a one-woman show with a pickup truck and trying to figure out, how do I leave too? And when the moment occurred to me that I shouldn't leave, and that I should stay, and I should, take a stand, if you will, and buy the farm, then the focus became about family and bringing family back together to work together. And that was the goal.
Anybody else?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here. Total inspiration. I have 2 questions, and I'll make them quick. My first question is, and I can't be the only one wondering, you don't know who's going to play your role in the series, but if you had to choose, who would you choose?
I actually have a really funny story about that. So, in my mind, it's Scarlett Johansson, right? I'm like, so I fly home from New York after having met with all of these different companies that wanted to pitch their idea, and I was with Will and Luke. And if you ever want to put your check in ego, like your ego in check, just talk to your kids, right? And I said, who do you think should play me? And they said, I don't know, Mom, who do you think should play you? And I said, well, I think Scarlett Johansson would be great. And Luke looks at me as, no. He says, I'm thinking Melissa McCarthy. Okay, that's fair. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But if Luke gets his way, it's like a Melissa McCarthy.
That's awesome. Thank you. And the second question, if there's just one message or one point that you can get across to young women who aspire to have a successful future, what would that be?
Just go for it. Don't think you have to have everything figured out perfectly. And don't ask yourself in your mind if you deserve it. So I think oftentimes young women in general, we think that we have to have everything so perfect, and then we question, well, did we do this first step, or do we have, do we really deserve it, or, oh, maybe that person might be a little bit better because they did this and I did that, I didn't do that, or whatever. Just no. You got to put all that stuff out of your head, and if you see something that you want, don't overthink it, just go for it. Because that's what men do, right? I mean, some of my best thinking has been done when I was thinking like a man, because I wasn't thinking. I was like, yeah, I want that, I'm gonna go get it. That's what they do. Right? We sit there and we're like, yeah, I want that. Oh, yeah, I don't know. Look, it looks a little far away, or, oh, might be a little too much, or am I good enough, or whatever. No, they don't think like that. They don't think like that at all. They're like, yeah, of course, I deserve it.
Awesome, I love that. Thank you.
Hi, Sarah. I love that. Perfection is the enemy of progress. That's so great.
So true.
Yeah, it is. And thank you for all the wisdom that you've shared with your book. I just think it's fantastic. One story that stuck out to me in particular that I share with my granddaughter often, because she continues to beg me to read it to her, is a story about the snapping turtle, which I love. And you say, and I'm not going to spoil it, but you say in there that you got such an adrenaline rush off of that experience, and you've tried throughout your life to replicate it. Have you come close to that, or is there anything that you seek today, nowadays, that gives you that, that rush, that high, that real sense of fulfillment and success, or adrenaline? Yeah.
Only when I'm about to die, when I feel like because that's the feeling. But it's hard. I've never really been able to replicate that exact moment and that exact feeling. But I would say the closest feeling to that was pulling something off, like a big deal. Like where you felt like you went up against insurmountable odds, and that maybe you were the underdog, and you had an idea or a vision for a product or a service, and you were, going head to head with the giant, and you ended up not exactly killing the giant, but making the giant bleed. That feeling has been replicated in my business life, in my professional life, a few times. Not exactly that feeling, but pretty close. The other times, really, honestly, it's that feeling like, oh gosh, I didn't die, in that moment. Like if you ultimately had something scary happen and you lived through it. And there have been a couple of moments like that in my life that were like the snapping turtle high, where you were like, oh, okay, I'm happy to be alive now. Because I think part of that rush was the fact that I still had all of my fingers. I put the turtle in the truck and didn't lose any fingers or limbs. Does anybody else have any questions? Anything?
How about telling them a little bit about, you've got some things going on right now, and with your brother, and you're very, very close.
Yeah. So the book is very family-oriented kind of book. I mean, obviously, I'm like one of 21 kids, so there's a lot of us. But a lot of the stories I share in the book are about my brothers, who are all kind of characters. But I have a home down here in Naples and spend a lot of time down here in Florida this time of year. And my brother Harley got very sick on Easter, and he ended up in the emergency room with blood clots in his lungs. And so they put him on blood thinner, and they were trying to get him over it. And I'm down here, we're getting ready to start to harvest our crops out in South Florida and LaBelle, Florida. And about this is sort of the time of the year where my other brothers start joining us in Florida. So my brother Leonard, my brother John, and myself, we're down here. Harley ends up on Easter Sunday in the hospital. Something's always kind of happening to him, but it gets very serious yesterday. In fact, I don't even know that I was going to be able to be here with all of you today, because he ended up getting internal bleeding from the blood thinner. And the only brother that he had there with him was John, and because of the COVID rules, they were going to kick out my brother John. Now, my brother John, I hate to say it, I know you're not supposed to have favorites in the family, but he's kind of my favorite, right? John's there with Harley, and they come in and they say, we're going to have to go do emergency surgery. Well, it's after visiting hours. He can't go in the ICU, get all of the COVID stuff. But John won't leave his brother. You know, he's like, no, I can't kick me out of the hospital. So he hides. Right? And I'm on the phone up here last night. I'm like, he's calling me on Messenger on Facebook because he has no cell service, but he's plugged into the hospital's Wi-Fi. And I said, John, why are you calling me on Messenger? He said, I'm hiding. I said, where are you hiding? He's like, well, I'm staying here with Harley, but I'm hiding so they don't kick me out. And I said, oh, that's actually a really good plan. And then here's where my head goes. I go, okay, are you in a supply closet? Steal some scrubs. Because at some point I'll be back down there and I'll need to get in too. So, but that's just, Kim wanted me to tell that story because it's just sort of a little bit about how close our family is, and after having been through everything that we've been through together, still today, decades later, we're all still hiding out in closets for each other in hospitals, like hoping we don't die. So I think that probably, if nobody else has any questions, that probably concludes my part of this at least. I think I'm going to sign some books for whoever wants one over here, and I think, Kim, are we ready to get on with it?
Hang on, there's 2 virtual questions.
Oh, okay.
What advice do you have for a small family farm to compete on a national scale?
Well, I think that whole small family farm thing, I probably learned the biggest lesson that I learned when I talked about what Will and Luke did and their direct-to-consumer marketing. And this is not the same advice that I would have given 2 years ago, but it's the advice that I would give now, and that would be to build your business and to build your brand and to tell your farm story online in such a way that consumers found engaging, and take that path to grow what you're growing, grow your business, grow your brands, and engage consumers more directly, and tell your story. It's kind of all about telling your story. And it depends on how big you want your small farm to be.
Okay, the other one is, was there a time you felt being a woman restricted or roadblocked you in work or personal?
What was the question again?
It says, was there a time you felt being a woman restricted or roadblocked you in work or personal? I guess they mean life.
Was there a time that I felt being a woman restricted?
Yes.
Growth? Was that the question?
Restricted you from growth.
Oh, restricted me from growing. No, not really. No, I actually felt like it was an advantage. I mean, at some point in my life, I was very young, and I figured out we are so intellectually superior. No, not at all, actually. No, I never really gave being a woman a whole lot of thought. Now, I realized, I was different. I wasn't as strong as the guys. I couldn't do, some of the things that they did. But no, I kind of liked the trade-off. But then I didn't also face a lot of the challenges that I know that other women face, because in my business, I was always really the boss. I had one other job my whole life. I was a cashier at Tractor Supply, right? That's all I did, right? It's the only other paycheck I ever got outside of working for myself. So I was sort of the master of my own universe, and I never really felt like if I encountered somebody who was sort of a jerk, I just went around them or over them or whatever, or just knocked them out of my way, because I didn't work for or under that person, or I didn't have to report to that person. So later in life, I probably listened to and was more sensitive to stories that my female colleagues would share with me about things that they had went through in their life. But I think the advice to women in business or, you know, in their professional lives and careers, I don't think that that necessarily changes.
Thank you.
Yep. Hit me, go. I don't have a boyfriend. Now what? Boy, I don't know. Well, it will be very interesting to see what the future holds. I'm really enjoying the business. I'm really enjoying creating new products. The Sarah's Homegrown brand is exciting, and it really sort of helps fulfill one of my greatest passions, and that's finding a purpose for, you know, everything that we grow, and finding a higher purpose for, you know, the ugly fruit. So many times in life and in business, like, it's not perfect, right? But what do you do with it? Do you take the experiences in life that are imperfect, and do you look for the good and the lessons in that? It's kind of the same thing that we do, you know, with the fruit in the business. It's like, it's not perfect, but do you discard it and till it back into the earth, or do you look for its greater purpose? So that's what I've been spending a lot of my time on, innovation, and how do we add value to what we're doing, and it's a lot of passion for that. So I get a lot of satisfaction and enjoyment. I don't know how much I'm actually going to work on the television show. I am like an executive producer on it, but at some point I have to believe that their writers are going to be incredibly creative, and they won't need me for a ton of input, so it's not like that's going to take up a lot of time. But this is an industry that I love and I'm very passionate about, and I see myself doing this for the rest of my life, frankly.
Have you thought about writing another book?
Oh, I don't know. That one almost killed me. Actually, you know what was harder? It was actually harder to read it. So you can actually get the audio version, which is in my voice, which I would, if I would have known how hard that was, there's no way. In no world would I ever do that again. It was terrible. I might write another book, but it will probably be a cookbook or a cocktail mixer book or something that doesn't have so many raw emotions.
Anybody else got anything? Okay, Kim.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your story and letting us get to know you better. And I guess for everybody out there, we have books, and Sarah's going to stay for another 30 minutes or so to sign them, and you can have little personal conversations with them at the table.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.